wash you, make you clean, put away the evil of your doings from before mine eyes. Cease to do evil, learn to do well. Seek judgment, relieve the oppressed, judge the fatherless, plead for the widow. Come now, and let us reason together. Though your sins
Hello, good day. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing our study today in the book of Job. We're in chapter 6, and Job is responding to one of his three friends, Eliphaz, the Temanite, and let's read what Job has to say. But Job answered and said, "Oh, that my grief were thoroughly weighed, and my calamity laid in the balances together. For now it would be heavier than the sand of the sea. Therefore my words are swallowed up. For the arrows of the Almighty are within me. The poison whereof drinketh up my spirit. The terrors of God do set themselves in array against me. Doth the wild ass bray when he hath grass? Or loweth the ox over his fodder? Can that which is unsavory be eaten without salt? Or is there any taste in the white of an egg? The things that my soul refused to touch are as my sorrowful meat. Oh, that I might have my request, and that God would grant me the thing that I long for. Even that it would please God to destroy me, that he would let loose his hand and cut me off. Then should I yet have comfort. Yea, I would harden myself in sorrow. Let him not spare, for I have not concealed the words of the Holy One. What is my strength, that I should hope? And what is mine end, that I should prolong my life? Is my strength the strength of stones, or is my flesh of brass? Is not my help in me, and is wisdom driven quite from me? To him that is afflicted, pity should be showed from his friend. But he forsaketh the fear of the Almighty. My brethren have dealt deceitfully as a brook, and as the stream of brooks they pass away, which are blackish by reason of the ice, and wherein the snow is hid. What time they wax warm, they vanish. When it is hot, they are consumed out of their place. The paths of their way are turned aside, they go to nothing and perish. The troops of Tema looked, the companies of Sheba waited for them. They were confused because they had hoped. They came thither and were ashamed. For now ye are nothing. Ye see my casting down and are afraid. Did I say, bring unto me? Or give reward for me of your substance? Or deliver me from the enemy's hand? Or redeem me from the hand of the mighty? Teach me, and I will hold my tongue, and cause me to understand wherein I have erred. How forcible are right words! But what doth your arguing reprove? Do you imagine to reprove words, and the speeches of one that is desperate, which are as wind? Yea, ye overwhelm the fatherless, and ye dig a pit for your friend. Now therefore be content, look upon me, for it is evident unto you if I lie. Return, I pray you, let it not be iniquity. Yea, return again. My righteousness is in it. Is there iniquity in my tongue? Cannot my taste discern perverse things? Is there not an appointed time to man upon earth? Are not his days also like the days of an hireling? As a servant earnestly desireth the shadow, and as an hireling looketh for the reward of his work, so am I made to possess months of vanity, and wearisome nights are appointed to me. When I lie down, I say, when shall I arise, and the night be gone? I am full of tossings to and fro unto the dawning of the day. My flesh is clothed with worms and clods of dust. My skin is broken and become loathsome. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and are spent without hope. O remember that my life is wind. Mine eye shall see no more good. The eye of him that hath seen me shall see me no more. Thine eyes are upon me, and I am not. As the cloud is consumed and vanisheth away, so he that goeth down to the grave shall come up no more. He shall return no more to his house, neither shall his place know him any more. Therefore I will not refrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. Am I a sea or a whale, that thou settest watch over me? When I say, my bed shall comfort me, my couch shall ease my complaint, then thou scarest me with dreams, and terrifiest me through visions, so that my soul chooseth strangling, and death rather than my life. I loathe it. I would not live alway. Let me alone, for my days are vanity. What is man, that thou shouldest magnify him, that thou shouldest set thine heart upon him, and that thou shouldest visit him every morning, and try him every moment? How long wilt thou not depart from me, nor let me alone till I swallow down my spittle? I have sinned. What shall I do unto thee, O thou preserver of men? Why hast thou set me as a mark against thee, so that I am a burden to myself? And why dost thou not pardon my transgression, and take away mine iniquity? For now shall I sleep in the dust, and thou shalt seek me in the morning, but I shall not be. Interesting. So, there's a lot to say here. I mean, a lot of it's not very clear, like, what is he driving at on every account? Obviously, he uses certain metaphors where I'm like, okay, this is going to be a challenge. So, oh, that my grief were thoroughly weighed, and my calamity laid in the balances together. You know, and they see what's happened to him. And the idea of, the calamity and the grief. That which happens to you is the calamity. And the grief is your response to the feelings you have about it. I want to say throughout this, and just like Jesus in Gethsemane, there's nothing wrong with having feelings or feeling them. But it is how we respond to those feelings ultimately. We know that, as it says, Job did not sin against God with his lips. Now again, at some point here he says, I have sinned. Well, of course he's sinned. All men have sinned. But he's saying, again, like I've been talking about, to deserve this? Absolutely not. He's never done anything to deserve this. Especially because he'd served God so zealously. But it's not a question of him deserving it. You understand? I'm going to preface this a little bit because it's something that's important. When I went over the parable of the workers' wages, the truth is none of us deserve the goodness that God gives us. We come into the world naked, but we come into the world naked in a body, that's for sure. We go naked in, we come naked in, we go naked out. But in between, we have all kinds of experiences we get attached to. And we set our heart on a certain amount of days, like we're going to have these days. He kind of talks about that. But I think part of what he's complaining about here is the fact that his friends do not understand his grief. He's saying they can see his calamity. And, and here's the thing, like I said, if I don't know, it's a different kind of thing. Because when you do something and you feel like you're responsible for it, on some level, depending on what it is, that can be a relief in the sense like, well, you understand. Like if you have a hangover, you understand where it came from. Oh, I drank too much. Now I have a hangover. I don't have to say, God, why are you doing this to me? Though he made the universe like that. He could have made the universe in such a way that you would never get hangovers. There'd be no consequence for your excess. But it's there, and God did it to you, actually. It's true. But you should know. Just like jumping off the temple. If you jump off a building and you go kersplat, you can say, God, why'd you do that to me? Though you could, because he made the world in such a way that if you jump off a building, you will go kersplat. No doubt about that. It's consistent like that. And God did it. He knew people were foolish enough to test it. And he did it anyways. And what he's saying is, they think and here's the thing, when I'm responsible for it though, I don't know, that sometimes it reverberates back and it makes me feel even worse. So sometimes, I don't know, when you can blame someone else, right? You can blame someone else like an enemy. An enemy did this. In fact, he talks about that a little bit. He's like, if I could say an enemy did this or something. Did I say anything like that? No. I say no enemy did anything to me. But the Almighty, his arrows have pierced me. God's done this to me. It's through no error of mine. And he's saying, you don't understand the depth. And so what he said, when you're someone who loves God, just like, causing something to happen to yourself is one kind of thing. But when someone you trust betrays you, quote unquote, I'll say betray. But when it comes from someone you're trusting and believing in, and like I serve God, I believe in God. And then when something happens where you have no doubt that the only one that could have allowed such things to happen to you is God himself, because you've been doing everything you could to make your relationship with him as perfect as possible. In fact, to the degree we know that God himself was boasting of this Job and of his faithfulness and of his uprightness. As I thought about the whole thing, because I think about it during the day when we're not doing this, I thought, I want to make sure I also think about in symbolic terms as it comes around, because there is symbolic language, and also just the whole setup, the devil and the Lord and all that stuff, the way that's being portrayed. Because I guess, like I said, it's not just about a story that happened to some guy. It's like, this is a lesson for all time. Anyways. My grief were thoroughly weighed and laid in the balances together, so you can see how and I think what he means is my grief exceeds what you understand. You understand how deeply grieved I am, because it would have been heavier than the sand of the sea. Therefore, my words are swallowed up. Yeah. It would have been, my grief is so heavy, and therefore my words are swallowed up. In the grief, I wonder I want to hear what some other translation has to say about that. Oh, I had to restart my computer right before the study, because everything was just so sluggish. And I was trying to get it work. That's one of the reasons we didn't start at 2:15. Okay, now it's working fine. So I didn't have this prepared like I did yesterday, and I did earlier have it prepared. So let's see. So in the NIV it says, yeah, would surely outweigh the sand of the sea. No wonder my words have been impetuous. No wonder my words have been impetuous. I wonder what he means by that. Impetuous. Well, I love when they translate words like, okay, most English speakers are going to need to look that up in a dictionary. I'm sorry, I didn't bring that up on your screen, but I will now. So they were like, oh, yeah, it would surely outweigh the sand of the sea. No wonder my words have been impetuous. Acting are done quickly without thought or care. Careless. And is that what that means? My words? And so in the Hebrew, because again, I don't always go with the NIV. I'm just interested. What do modern scholars say? And that seems like they're making a big jump there, like impetuous. Because it means to swallow, gulp down, or devour. I don't know. I mean, when I think about him and his friends, it's like, you know how like, you ever been in, because I think of all my relationships in life, you ever been in an argument with someone and then they grab onto some word you say, some couple words maybe. It's just part of what you said and maybe an incidental part. I mean, not the core of what you're getting at, but they decide they're going to make that the most big deal about the whole thing, right? In a sense, I think maybe he's saying that they are eating up his words and getting the wrong idea. Or, because like when they say impetuous, I think they're saying that they're accusing him of that somewhat. But again, I don't find anything to accuse Job of per se, at least not what they're saying, because the Lord himself does not accuse Job ultimately. And so I've got to think of him in terms of innocence. It would be, his grief would be heavier. Maybe saying that in his grief he says words that are, whatever. I don't know. I'm going to leave that and let's just move on. For the arrows of the Almighty are within me. The poison thereof drinketh up my spirit. The terrors of God do set themselves in array against me. Arrows being within you is obviously, like in battle when guys would get shot with arrows, it's a very bad situation when you get shot with arrows. And there are these, in prophecy and in other places in the scriptures, they use metaphorically the idea of being shot at with arrows to be in a mortally wounded situation. And so he talks about the arrows of God within me. It means I'm struck, I'm wounded, and he's hit me with these sharp instruments, these deadly instruments of war. The Almighty is coming after me. The poison whereof drinketh up my spirit. And again, it's a metaphor for just like the idea that, and all, realizing that God is behind, like Jesus on the cross, my God, why have you forsaken me? To feel like even God has turned his back on you, even though, as the psalm says, he doesn't do that. Even though you feel that way, Jesus felt just like humans do when they get in a bad situation. We feel like God has forsaken us. But as Jesus said, I will never leave. I'm with you always, even to the end of the earth. But believe me, I've been in some situations where I felt pretty God-forsaken. Okay? Nothing like Job, nothing like the Lord, but, we all have our little battles, and getting over them helps us become stronger. So, when you feel like that even the Almighty is turned against you, that's kind of a poison in your spirit. It's going to drink up your will to live. It's hard to face that even God himself has decided I'm through. He's mortally wounded. He talks later. He's like, I ain't dead yet, though but I ain't dead. So there's that. I wish he'd kill me, he says. That's why a lot of Christians don't want to go through this book because Job says, God calls him perfect, and he says things that like, well, perfect people shouldn't say. Well, you know what? Maybe if your kids were more willing to talk about their feelings, they wouldn't go secretly kill themselves. Maybe if they read things like Job and understood there was some sort of sympathetic ear to be had, and not just blame the victim, which is clearly part of the message. I do think one of the keys is when he accuses his friends. And I'm jumping ahead, but to him that is afflicted, pity should have been showed from his friend. And that's kind of the key, is like, why does God afflict his servants? Because sometimes other people ought to show pity on us. And though it's to our hurt, it's also to our glory and to God's glory. And if we keep faith, that'll all be made right in the end. But the thing is, we can't be actors in this. It has to be real. I think so. I don't know. Could God have done it some other way? Yeah, but he liked this way best. That's why I always say, like, can God do things other ways? Oh, yeah, he could, I suppose. But he wanted to do it this way. And this was his choice. There's people, they want to impugn God. One of the things I would say about Job is, you got to understand, one of the important messages of it that people don't get is because God became a man in Jesus, we've over-anthropomorphized God. God is not a man. Not like we, like just some dude in the sky. He's not some dude in the sky. He's way beyond that kind of like local, like just thinking of God in terms of another person. Much beyond that. And that's why when we say things, when people do things like, start deciding who lives and dies, what do we say? They're playing God. Because only God could decide who lives and dies, because God has omniscience. He knows everything. He's just. He's got all these qualities that make him fit to judge. But when things happen that we don't understand, a lot of times people, because of their, I love God, they'll blame the victim. And that does not please God. If he's causing one of his servants to suffer, he's not doing it so you can go over there and blame him. It's an important thing to remember. That's one of the important lessons of Job. Pity should be shown to the innocent. To the afflicted. Right? It didn't even say innocent. But it's, but especially when, like I said, they like to blame the victim. We even have that saying, blame the victim. It's like, don't want to blame the victim. Don't want to be a victim. Don't act like a victim. Don't be someone who's so, easily victimized. Job is afflicted. I mean, everyone can agree that Job, some bad stuff has happened to the fellow. Not only has he lost his whole family and all his possessions, except for his, questionable wife. And God left the wife. Satan has a funny sense of humor. He leaves the wife, who is not exactly a prize. Okay. But she's serviceable. I mean, she sticks around till the end, so hey, she didn't leave him. Sometimes that's a blessing. Sorry. Okay. Poison whereof drinketh up my spirit. It taps, it sucks away my spirit. The poison, how would that poison act? It's like, well, the thought that God is against me. Even God is against me. That is a poisonous thought in your mind. And the terrors of the Almighty, an array against me. Ugh. Doth the wild ass bray when he hath grass, doth the loweth the ox or his fodder. Now me, I don't know. I'm not a very agriculturist kind of guy. But I'm assuming these are two rhetorical questions, which the answer is no. Right? No, of course not. No, he doesn't pray when he has grass. No, they low over his fodder. Okay, right? So can that which is unsavory be eaten without salt? Again, well, you could force yourself. But the point is, it's like, well, no. You put salt on it, of course, right? Or is there any taste in the white of an egg? No. So I can yeah, but it's not a very flavorful thing. I'm gonna just try some plain egg white sometime with nothing. Don't even use butter. It's a very plain flavor. As a kid, I liked plain stuff. I ate my egg whites, but I ate them with salt and pepper. Again, so you gotta put salt in them, right? The things my soul refused to touch are as my sorrowful meat. So that's got to be the conclusion of what he's saying. All right, it's because he's asking these rhetorical questions, and it leads up to this. The things that my soul refused to touch. And what that seems to mean to me is like this, right? My soul, I refuse to touch certain things because, what? They're forbidden, right? I shouldn't do that, right? But now they're my sorrowful meat. And he mentions things, notice the wild ass, what is it talking about? It's food. The ox over his fodder, it's food. You know what I mean? And then, can that which is unsavory be eaten without salt? Or is there any taste in the white of an egg? No. The things which my soul refused to touch are as my sorrowful meat. Well, it seems to be saying like the things I would otherwise never eat are now the things I eat all the time, are my sad meal. And I think what he's saying is, you hear me crying, I'm not eating the right things, right? And let's go back again. Well, a wild ass, does it eat grass? Yes. The ox, does it eat fodder? Yes. Those are the appropriate thing. And so if they have the right food, they don't complain, I think is the basic message, right? Because he's complaining. And so he's saying, okay, if they have the right food, they won't complain. But can you eat stuff that's not good to eat without the thing needed to make it edible, right? Is there any taste in the tasteless? Is there any happiness in the totally desperate? And why is it the things that my soul refused to touch? Well, to me that says like some sort of like, I refuse to sin. I refuse to engage in these activities. But is he saying I'm eating those activities? No. What he's saying, I'm reaping the consequence of having, as if I had touched those things that I shouldn't have touched. And so I'd eat, So I'm eating up the reward of something I have not done. I think that's what he's at. The things I refuse to touch are as my sorrowful meat. Meaning, like it says, you reap what you sow. And you make your bed, you lay down in it. You set your table. There you go. Whatever table you set, that's what you're gonna eat. And then, in this also, I refuse to do these things, yet I'm still having to bear the consequence. And so then, and I think that makes sense as far as if you think about it. If you think about it, saying like, I refused. It's like because it's like Jesus. He's paying for things he didn't do. He's being punished for sins he didn't commit. The things my soul refers to touch are my sorrowful meat. All these things there should be a big no. I said no to all those things or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what he's getting at, but it seems like you can kind of feel it. I feel like I feel it, but it's hard to, articulate it perfectly. But I think that's, getting there. Because then he immediately starts talking about wishing he was dead. And what else would make you wish you were dead than suffering the consequences of sins you didn't commit? Like I said, it's one thing when I've done it and I did it to myself. And I say, I did it to myself. Oh, that's so terrible. Oh, I did it to me. But actually, it's even worse when it's like, I didn't do anything. Of course, in Christ, that kind of gets turned on its head because mentally I'm prepared to suffer for doing things which I didn't deserve. And in a sense, I might end up rejoicing in something like that because of the knowledge I have. The knowledge of God can carry us through this. Job is sort of discovering this, or the book is revealing it to us. Like I said, did this really happen? It's like, it happens all the time. What are you talking about? It happens all the time. There is pain in life that goes beyond what it seems we deserve from, and while we can say, oh no, you deserve it, it's really wrong to go there. Like I said, because there is pity to be shown to the afflicted. Say like, well, you sinned. It's like, what did he sin to deserve this? Just like Peter asked, oh, this man was born blind. Whose sins were it, his or his parents? He didn't. Then Jesus didn't say that guy's without sin. No, he said, no, it's like the blindness has nothing to do with his sin. A lot of the things we suffer have nothing to do with our sins. Maybe not a lot, but there can be some. Sometimes you suffer for your sins. Sometimes you suffer for apparently no reason, but it might be for the kingdom's sake. It might be for the sake of just the fact that we live in a fallen world in which bad things happen to people, period. And it's not necessarily, and God is behind it because he made the world and all things that are in it. But on the other hand, do you trust him and understand that this is a very brief pit stop on the way to eternity? It's a very brief pit stop, but it doesn't feel brief, and it feels awfully real, and it is awfully real because the consequences are for real. The way you handle yourself is important. The way you treat your fellow man. And Job is a man who has pleased God in that in every single way. And it doesn't mean he's perfect in the sight of God, because God has pardoned his iniquity. But has he ever sinned in his life? Oh, yeah. We all sin. There's not a just man upon the earth that doeth good and sinneth not, but there are just men who are, they've been made just because they've been justified. And that ought to give us humility to understand. It's like we had to be, because none of us could stand on our own 2 feet, really. Though we may not deserve a horrible early death or a painful, torturous death at the hands of some criminal. We may not deserve that. But we also don't deserve to live forever. We never been able on our own 2 feet to be able to stand up and say, look, I merit eternity. My existence is, of course, I should live forever. I raise my hand up and I say, I live forever. Because, of course, me, I should live forever. Who is there among us that can truly say such things and not be a fool? Oh, that I might have my request. Oh, what do you want, Job? Oh, what is he? Oh, that God would grant me the thing that I long for. I long for death. Yes, I know, Job. I know. Even that would please. But you'll notice God never faults Job for feeling like this and saying these things, which are kind of bitter things. I'm glad. Just like he forgave Peter for denying him and Thomas for doubting him, But I don't want to tempt Christ, not like that. It's like, though we can look at examples of those, of apostles and prophets and men of God of old, who we can look at their flaws and say, well, that's like us, and take some comfort in that. But don't take it for granted either. And then just think like, well, I'll just, the more sinful I am, the more compelling my story. Why? I'm a really terrible sinner, right? To look at God's grace just carried me through all the way. That's not really what it's all about. Don't use grace as a cloak to hide evil intent. Then should I yet have comfort that he would loose his hand and cut me off. Oh, yes. God is making all things happen. And I wish he would just destroy me. Why didn't he just kill me? And I'd have comfort. I would harden myself in sorrow. Interesting. It's in a sense it'd be comforting. Just kill me. Finish me off. And then I could just be like sad about it, but harden myself against it. But I think what he's suggesting is because he's not dead. He's like, well, why don't you just kill me? It's like, Lord, this sucks, Lord. I don't really want to live this life anymore. I was chugging along okay and doing everything I thought I should do, and I was really into it because, you get caught up in life. I got grandchildren. You love the little grandchildren, right? You feel you love your children. You love your grandchildren. You love your extended family, you feel affection towards these people. You don't want anything bad to happen to them, they all just... And then God's sitting there, and then you come down with every boil in the world, and it's like the Lord's hand is in it, because there's no way this could happen without his leave. Satan can't do that kind of stuff. He is restrained. This ain't the book of Revelation just yet, where he's coming around and stinging people and making them tormented. Nope, can't do that. He's got other methods, and he can only do it when permitted. Let him not spare, for I have not concealed the words of the Holy One. I think what it means is like, when you conceal the words of the Holy One, it's just like the guy with the one talent. What did he do? He hid his talent in the earth. That thing which God had given him, that talent, and it is the words of the Holy One, because the power is in the words, in the understanding that the words bring, in the wisdom that the words bring forth, right? And he mentions his wisdom and stuff, these things that they have not departed from me. Where is my strength? What is my end that I should prolong my life? Is my strength the strength of stones, or my flesh the flesh of brass? Is not my help in me? And his wisdom driven quite from me? I still have my wisdom. I still have my life. I could harden myself if he'd kill me, but I still know. I've never concealed the words of the Holy One. What is my strength that I should hope? Or what is my end that I should prolong my life? Where is this going? Is my strength the strength of stones? No, it's the strength of God. And the wisdom that he's given him. The holy, the things, he doesn't have the understanding we would, but we would talk about the Holy Spirit. My flesh of brass. I'm not some sort of, man made out of metal or of stone. I'm of flesh. I'm human. And where do I get my strength from? I don't get it from stones or from brass. It's from the Almighty. And this is, I think, one of his strongest points, because he understands. And he's saying to his friends, while they're supposedly to comfort them, they end up rebuking him. And then he's like, I'm so sad and I wish I was dead. But you know what? You guys are wrong. Or you're wrong, Eliphaz. You should have showed pity to the one who is afflicted. I know the wisdom of God. He taught it to me. I've never hid his words. Show pity to the afflicted. But you forsake the fear of God. Because I'm saying, blaming the afflicted or the victim or the one, it's their fault. It's their fault. They need to work harder. And it's like when the system is being rigged against people left and right. There's no amount of work harder that's going to make things better. Sometimes you got to understand when there's evil afoot. Or when when the Lord has let the enemy loose. And don't be surprised when the Lord lets the enemy loose on America. We're asking for it. We've been asking for it for decades. Like I said, in the Old Testament, in the days of Manasseh, a couple generations before the final destruction came, it was already set. It was too late. Manasseh shed too much blood, and by then, it's over. I strongly suspect, I don't know, I'm not probably, but it's like we have shed a lot more blood than Manasseh. And the idea that through such bloodshed, we would be allowed to make this a worldwide empire of evil. Like when they shut down you, instead of promoting Drag Queen Story Hour and all the other nonsense in other countries, like the only thing I want, if they're pushing some sort of ideology, it should just be rampant Americanism of all men are created equal and are endowed with their creator by blah, blah, I'm not going to start babbling, with certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, right? And that was not something that they believed was given to us by the Constitution or some other nonsense. It was given by God. And that means that those rights apply to people in other countries too. And when our country violates the rights of people in other countries, they're violating what we believe in. They're violating our rights. Just happens to be other people because they're outside of the jurisdiction. I think the Supreme Court is evil for when this happened a while ago, when they decided, oh, the Constitution only applies to the U.S. government to the water's edge. I get it. It's hard to give people constitutional rights and murder them, you know. I mean, hey, if you want to murder people, you can't give them constitutional rights, or just rights. Human rights really is what they are. They're not constitutional. The Bill of Rights doesn't give us rights. It constrains the government. Whatever, I'm getting off the track. Pity should be showed to the afflicted. But they don't fear God. They think you can just let people suffer and move on. You know, cash in, move on. Turn the other way. Just like in the Good Samaritan. Remember, they just kept walking because, like, hey, you know, I might become unclean. And he probably sinned. I mean, why else would God let the thieves attack him? If someone's beat up on the side of the road, they probably did something to deserve it. I mean, who am I to be interfering with the judgment of God? And on I go. Great way to excuse yourself. You know, like, I don't want to give money to that panhandler. They're probably going to use it to buy drugs, right? They're probably going to be wasted on wine or alcohol. It's a convenient excuse. I don't have to give them anything. Give to him that asketh thee for. That's not what Jesus said. Oh, except unless you think they might be unworthy. I don't think you always have to. I mean, here's the thing. Sometimes people are unworthy. You don't want to be foolish and just give your money to some shyster, some con artist, right? But when someone seems desperate and you can't tell the difference, and it's not obviously that, it's like sometimes you just err on the side of pity. As you should. My brethren have dealt deceitfully as a brook, and as streams of brooks they pass away. You understand? This is very common in the East, the ancient Near East, even to this day. They have many streams that are intermittent. Like here, where I live, water flows continually because it's a very well-watered land. But in certain areas, only when it rains in the mountains for a while, these streams will run, maybe days, weeks, and months. But then the dry season comes and they dry up. And you say, my friends are like these streams. And when the dry, you know, oh, yeah, they're black by reason of the ice, right? Wherein the snow is hid when the melting snow and the black ice, and then the weather when it's wet in the wet season. Up high in the mountains, ooh, that cold water coming down from the land of sky blue waters, right? You know, all that beautiful stuff. And when the time they wax warm, now the warm air comes, ooh, lukewarm water in a dusty old stream. And when it's hot, they're consumed out of their place. They're just gone. And just like my friends, just like that, you know, Jesus used a very similar analogy when he talked about the sun coming out and scorching those seeds, right, that had not much depth of earth. They were on the stony soil, right? This is a little different, though, right? But same idea. My friends, instead of being refreshing, when hard times come, when the affliction and persecution comes around with the sun, you know, the bright sun pounding down on my head, the water's all gone, and they're not refreshing at all. They're just a real disappointment. That's what, you know, a stream that, you know, like you go, oh, just over the next ridge. I know there's a stream there because there was one there just a month ago. I just got to make it over there. And then you go, it's all dust. Oh. Those are Job's friends. The paths of their way are turned aside. They go to nothing and perish. You know, the troops of Tema looked. The companies of Sheba waited for them. He's getting poetic. You know, They were confounded because they had hoped. They were hoping in this. They were traveling from Sheba, a land far off, or Tema, which is also far. I don't know if that's Temanite. Whatever. They were traveling and they were confounded because they had hoped. You know, when you put hope in something, the disappointment is greater. The shock. You know, they came thither and we're ashamed. I think he's making that analogy for himself. He kind of had hoped that his friends would be refreshment and comfort. For now ye are nothing. You see me casting down and are afraid. You're afraid. You see my casting down, you're afraid. They don't want to believe. There's the thing. They don't want to believe that this just happened. He must have sinned. Because, and what if it was just, a great sin too? Because it's got to be a worthy sin. It's not just nothing. They wouldn't say like, well, this is because of your minor infractions, Job. Remember the other day you almost lost your temper? No, that's not what that's about at all. Remember the other day when you whatever, I don't know. He makes a good enough case for himself, I suppose. Did I say, Alexis, bring unto me, or give a reward for me of your substance, or deliver me from the enemy's hand, or redeem me from the hand of the mighty? You know what I'm saying? Did I come to you guys ever in the past? Was I ever like covetous? And I say he taught others. He was an instructor. And in that, just like, give me stuff. Send me your money. Send me your money. Reward me of your substance. Give. Did I ever say that? He says. Or help me. Come give me out. I'm in trouble. I need your help. Redeem me. I'm stuck. I need someone to come save me. Teach me. Show me. Did this ever happen? And I'll shut up. Why is he saying that? Well, I assume all this assumes he's getting into trouble by, why would he be in the enemy's hand? All his life God has led him. He's never had to turn to men for their support. Not some dire situation, like deliver me from the enemy's hand. Or support my livelihood. I need people to support me. I need people to give me money. Tell me. Cause me to understand where I erred. Man, did I do something like that? Was I making myself, because that can be, interestingly, I think he's like, people who say this are SOBs who might deserve something like this, right? That's what he's sort of suggesting. People are like, give me reward, because Job's a preacher. That's what it says. You are an instructor. Did it not say you have instructed others and all that? And Job is that. He's an instructor of people. He's like a leader. Did he ever just try to cash in? No, he had his own business and stuff. He didn't do that. All that mentoring and leadership stuff he did for nothing. He just was Job. He didn't need to get paid for it, to be the man, or to have someone else come deliver. He delivered others. Come teach me and I'll shut up. How forcible are right words? Yeah, when you hear the right thing, it's like, wow. I've been wrong and I've had my heart pierced. And people have, I don't mind. Like I said, so I had to be adjusted on the Trinity at some point. And I didn't want to, but someone convinced me with the scriptures. And I was like, whoa, I'm wrong. And that's what Job, I think it'd be the same thing. Right words would convince me. People get frustrated sometimes because they argue with people and they don't convince them. Well, sometimes your arguments are bad. Like this Christian the other day, I commented on his video. He never responded. It's too bad. He has very few listeners, and if he responded with just a few comments, sorry about my lack of response sometimes. It's mostly because I miss him, and I never get on this computer hardly right now except to do these studies. Right now, I'm really just doing a lot of other things. I can show you photos, but I'm not going to bore you with that. Anyways, Did I come to you for salvation? I always went to the Lord or whatever. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, I would hear right things. If you could say the right things to me right now, they'd be so forceful. If what you were saying was true, but what does your arguing reprove? You're reproving nothing. It's a straw man, essentially. Like they're setting up Job as, Job, you must have sinned. It's like, you must have done this. You must have done that. I didn't do any of that. You're reproving stuff that's nothing to do with me. Do you imagine to reprove words, like my words? You think there's something wrong with my words? That I'm just telling you I'm innocent? Because in a sense they're like, wow, you shouldn't say that. You're not innocent. How can you say God, what do you think, you're more just than God? What they're really saying is, what they are observing is injustice. And they are afraid to blame God for it. To say God allowed this. That would be, for them, meaning that God was unjust. But I say it doesn't mean God is unjust, because God is operating on a different level of justice, because his justice is cosmic. He doesn't offer us temporal justice or any... I mean, here's the thing. I think I understand things about reality. But, I don't know for sure. I do know that what the Bible says to a great degree, and I know my impression of that and my opinion of that. And I think I got that understanding from spending a long time looking for it, and I feel like God rewarded me of that and has given me an understanding. I can't always explain it to others as good as I maybe feel like I understand it myself, or at least as good as it comforts me, because I do give it a lot of thought. And like I said, I don't feel like... I try to set a high bar on the Lord. I mean, I expect a lot of him because he's God. But also I know that I'm a supplicant. I'm coming to beg. That too. So while I know he has a lot to offer, I know I better offer a lot, which means everything. So, and that's the thing. It's like you can obtain things from him, understanding, knowledge, all these things, the right words. Do you imagine to reprove words and the speeches of one that is desperate, which are as wind? He's talking about his desperation and stuff. I don't know. How are they as wind? In a sense, like he's saying, is like, I'm saying and I guess this would be weird for him to talk like this from my perspective, because like sometimes when I've been in an argument and I realize I went too far, or I spoke a little too heavy-handedly to whoever, my wife most usually, but I'll realize suddenly, even though I was all emotional to a certain point, I'll realize I got to backtrack right now and like put a stop to what I just said. It's like, wait a second, I shouldn't have said that. It's just that I'm feeling so bad, I start throwing things out merely because I know they might hurt. It's not because I believe it. It's just because I'm angry and trying to hurt somebody. And that's not good. But in desperation, people make speeches that give their feelings. And like I said, do they seek to rebuke the feelings of one who is desperate, of one who is afflicted? Which are it's like this emptiness. It's like, what? I want to die? I want to die. He's like, what? If I sinned if I said something against God, everything I've had been taken away, and for no cause. Oh no, you can't say that, because you're making yourself more just than God. Only if you think that way. You imagine to reprove words in the speeches of one that is desperate, which are as wind, and yea, you overwhelm the fatherless and dig a pit for your friends. Overwhelming the fatherless is a metaphor for being bad. To overwhelm the fatherless, we're not supposed to overwhelm the fatherless. We're supposed to care after them, and and we're not supposed to dig pits for our friends. You know what I mean? They haven't digged a pit for them, but that's like what you're like the type. You're the type that overwhelm the fatherless and dig pits for your friends. So that's what he means. And now therefore be content. Look upon me, for it is evident to you if I lie. I think he's saying, look at me and tell me I'm lying. Tell me, you think you can tell if I'm, I think he's saying, you should be able to, he might be suggesting like, okay, look at me. It should be evident whether I'm telling the truth or not. Because sometimes people have tells if they're lying. But Job is a forthright and honest man. And, if someone's used to telling the truth, if they start to lie, it's going to be different. Because it's like, unless you're accustomed to lies, it can be difficult because of conscience. Return, I pray you, let it be not iniquity. Yea, return again, my righteousness is in it. Return, I pray you, let it not be iniquity. Yes, return again, my righteousness is in it. Is there any iniquity in my tongue? Cannot my taste discern perverse things? And he goes back to taste, because this is all part of that part where he started about talking about the tasting of things, right? The white of the egg and all that. And then he comes down to, my taste. Like I said, I'm not reaping the consequences of evil things. And my taste, I understand not to put things in my mouth that are perverse. I can distinguish good from evil. That's what he means by my taste can discern perverse things from good things. I know egg white from, an omelet with cheese and onions or whatever. A savory omelet with cheese and onions fried up in butter and bacon grease with a couple strips of bacon. I guess that would not be on the menu for the Jews. Right. So, anyways, that's on the menu for me, though. Go away, Windows protection. Forever. I wish. All right. Return, I pray you, let it not be iniquity. I'm going to look at this up in another translation. Because I need help. I mean, I wanted to, sometimes it's not a question of what does it say, but what is it? Relent, do not be unjust. Reconsider, for my integrity is at stake. Is there any wickedness on my lips? Can my mouth not discern malice? Wait. But now be so kind as to look at me. Would I lie to your face? Well, that's kind of what we thought he was saying. Relent, do not be unjust. Reconsider, for my integrity is at stake. Is there any wickedness on my lips? Can my mouth not discern malice? Well, that seems to make a lot of sense the way they wrote it. And here on the other one we have, look on me, for it is evident to you if I lie. You would know if I was lying to you. Return. What do they say instead of return? Oh, relent. Yeah, I've got to remember. Relent means return means often, not come back. Often give back. Like return your book to the library. Return, I pray you. Return to me. Like a friend. Like be a true friend. Relent, stop. I like the idea of return like a true friend. Let it not be iniquity. Return again. My righteousness is in it. My righteousness is at stake, is what they're saying, is in this thing. Is there any iniquity in my tongue? Cannot my taste discern perverse things? Because the tongue, though the tongue speaks the things, taste is put for that other thing which the tongue is able to distinguish. Because the tongue does not distinguish words for, for the body per se. The ears distinguish the words of other people. Or brain, anyways, whatever you want to say. The brain does it all, ultimately, right? But the tongue, it tastes. And it's interesting to mingle the idea of the tongue speaking iniquity and also tasting to discern things that are perverse from things that are holy. Or we should say straight and narrow would be more proper than comparison to perverse than holy. Holy would be like unholy or profane. Perverse would be straight or upright. Anyways, so I thought we'd go into chapter 7. We don't have time for that. I'm not even going to really, it'll be interesting. We're going to have to continue there on Friday. And so we'll begin reading there in 7 and probably go into 8, I guess, because who knows, because it may take a little less time on this. I didn't know if we'd get through all that. But anyways, very interesting book, very different than a lot of other books in the scriptures. Like I said, it's a very human book. It delves into the depths of human experience. And I think it's an important book because it's tackling one of those difficult questions having to do with the problem of evil in the world. Not just the problem of evil, but why do bad things happen to good people? Good people. I know there's no one good but God, no, not one, right? But there are men that are good, are more good than others. Yes, from God's perspective, we're all just a bunch of filthy sinners. But also he understands that on a more microscopic level, some men are giving more heed to their consciences than others. Anyways, remember the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy, and he is the fulfillment of the law. We'll be back again tomorrow. Until then, God bless.
Wash you, make you clean, put away the evil of your doings from before mine eyes. Cease to do evil, learn to do well. Seek judgment, relieve the oppressed, judge the fatherless, plead for the